So we're recording.
We're recording. We're on.
Yes. Marieke,
Mm.
I've attended a couple of your online sessions and I've really enjoyed them. Your taste in music, your explanation, just the way that you hold space. It's really admirable. So I'm very happy to welcome you on my podcast. And thank you so much for taking the time to share this moment with me.
Oh, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I'm really happy and honored to hear like how you feel this is great work and yeah, that the way I hold space is resonating with you because this is highly personal as well as we work with energy and frequency to find people that you resonate with. Yeah.
Yes. I think the first time that I heard about you was from a girl who lived in Bali, Sophie. She,
Yeah.
Sophie Sunflow. She
Yeah.
told me, yeah, there's this woman here, Marieke. She's like a goddess, and
No.
she's doing like these amazing sessions. So I heard about you, but I never been to Bali. But then I did an online session with you, and it was so like the energy was so clear, pure, strong. For me, it felt really like intense. I was like, whoa, really like this.
And
So
was that your first ever session related to Kundalini energy, or you had worked with that before?
so I had done by that time, I think over 60, 70 sessions in
Oh, wow.
person. Yeah, so a lot. But still, you know, when you work with different facilitators, every facilitator has like their own taste in music, their own like I don't want to say energy, but like style,
Yeah.
and just the way that you hold space, it resonates. It's so easy. It's so easy.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
Great, beautiful.
And powerful, really powerful.
Mm. Mm. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask you how many sessions have you done by now?
Oh, wow. Like you mean group sessions in the setting that you have attended?
Hmm.
Well, maybe I have to make a quick calculation, like maybe around 450, 500,
Wow.
something like that, something around that. Like I haven't counted, but like yeah, I see like how many sessions I do a month, something like that, something around that number.
And
Yeah, that sounds like a lot when I say it like that.
how many sessions have you attended yourself in your life?
So the way I got introduced to energy work is quite different than a lot of people. Like nowadays, this Kundalini activation really is becoming a thing. And for a lot of people, it's the first time they really experience themselves as an energetic being. So for me, how I got in touch with this way of doing transmission, um, it's a couple of years ago. And I personally have not attended many transmissions before I started doing this work at all. So
Mm.
my journey into this is about 9 years ago. I experienced a spontaneous Kundalini awakening. I was here in Bali and I was laying on my bed. And at the time, I felt very expanded. I was in a great place in my life. I was very relaxed. I was really open to life. I was quite ecstatic, I would say. And I was laying on my bed and just tracing sensations in my body because I felt so much and I felt so alive. And suddenly, out of nowhere, I had this feeling of exploding, exploding into the universe, cosmic orgasm, beyond bliss, extremely blissful and beyond. And my whole body started to convulse, to shake, and I dissolved into everything. And it was a huge, like, life-changing experience. I I knew about Kundalini energy, but it's not something that I was actively pursuing or that I was interested in, or at the time I didn't really understand what was going on so much. And after 6 weeks that were very beautiful and very intense, like when I grounded back into the human body, at the time I was also doing Reiki, I was doing different types of body work. When I started working on people, they began to experience things that I was not necessarily actively inducing, that were not necessarily part of a Reiki session or part of abdominal massage or whatever it was that I was doing. And I got very curious. And also I felt, oh my gosh, what is happening here? I don't have the knowledge of what this is. And I spoke to many people, and there was not really anyone who could guide me. I didn't find anyone who could guide me. So I started looking online and trying to figure out, like, what is this and what is going on? And I found a video of a tantra school where someone was doing tantric energy work, where this woman on the table started to have like energetic orgasms. And I was like, yeah, that's what my body is doing. Like, I need to learn from this man. So my entrance into working with energy, working with Kundalini energy, really came from the tantric perspective. And from there, I have really studied with different teachers, so to say, or different people with different approaches. Because especially in the beginning, my approach was still very linear and very much, I want to understand all of this. So how does this work, and how can I use this? And over the years, like, I'm really grateful for all the knowledge that I have acquired over the year, all the wisdom that I've been able, to receive from many different people and many different lineages, because it helps me to have a framework, mainly to support others in their process, because we need to have a mental framework. But in the actual work of transmission, it's been a journey on coming back completely to full surrender, that everything is already there. And it's not the technique or the tools that you have that are going to make this successful. So there is beauty, and I think it's really important, especially as a facilitator, to have knowledge around this process. But eventually it's been a journey on where I started and how this started to happen naturally and spontaneously. That is exactly how it's supposed to be. Yeah.
Can I ask you, what were you doing before the energy work? Like, well, how were you before? What kind of person were you?
Yeah. So I've always been someone that's been curious in living life in a different way. I'm from the Netherlands. I never felt like I belonged there. I always loved traveling. Like, directly after high school, I went away to France because I couldn't afford to go anywhere more exotic, to work there for a year. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. I was not attracted to, like, I was a really good student, but I was not attracted to the university in any way. But after a year of kind of moving around Europe, I was like, I probably should like study something. But yeah, what? I still had nothing that really pulled me in. So I did something very general. I studied international communications. I was like, I love languages. I'm good with people. I'm going to learn Spanish. I can study abroad. And it's something that leaves the road still very open. So I did that. It was a very easy study. So I wasn't there much. In the winters, I was working as a ski guide. And in the summer, I was organizing tours for people in different locations. And in the meantime, I would study a little bit, but I was really not passionate about that in any way. So after finishing that, I still didn't really have a clue. I went traveling again, and I started to get in touch with yoga. First, just from a physical practice that I really enjoyed. And when was that? 2006, I think. I went to Thailand to study Thai massage for 3 months. In the meantime, I had started my own PR company because I'm not a person that works for a boss. And I thought, then I can just do projects. And in the meantime, I can travel and pursue things that I find interesting. Because I knew like I don't really fit in the corporate world, but I need to make a living. So I did that, and I studied Thai massage, which really opened up a new world of energy and a different approach of the human body as a system that is more than just a physical body. And I started to feel more energy when I was working with people. At one point, I was like, oh, I can really start to sense like there's more than just the physical. So that was really wonderful. And that really started me off on learning more different methods and diving into Tantra and different types of energy work. But still, I had my PR agency, and I was also, on the other hand, I was this corporate woman that at one point was doing pretty well. But I really felt like, oh, if I would teach a workshop on the weekend, that would fill me up. And then my corporate work in the week actually would not. And I felt very tired, and I was like, what am I doing? Because I am living a life right now where I am my own boss. I have lots of international clients, so it looks very fancy. I'm flying around and doing all those cool projects. I had a nice house in the center of Amsterdam. And I was like, if this is what, in a way, kind of success looks like, it's really not for me. Like, this is not the life that I really want to live. So I quit everything from one day to the other. And I was like, my relationship ended after many years because I felt I needed to shift. I needed to change. And I went to Bali to teach yoga. And from there, I had no plan. And people were like, oh my God, Marieke, like, what are you doing? You're giving all of this up to do what? To become a yoga teacher? Like, are you out of your mind? And I was like, actually, this is one of the first times in my life that a decision actually feels like a big yes, like something that is aligned. And I don't think I'm going to be a yoga teacher for the rest of my life, but this is what I'm supposed to do right now. So that's what I did. I really opened a new door, not really knowing where that would go. And I enjoyed 2 years of learning and traveling and teaching in different countries and different retreat centers. And yeah, until the last year before I had this like awakening experience, I spent almost a year in a very, very remote area or areas where after 6 p.m. there would be no electricity. There was no Wi-Fi. There was no internet. Like during the day, sometimes over the phone with a very bad signal, you could like do some stuff, but nothing like no social media. So I slept on a platform outside with a mosquito net. You could see the moon and the stars. So very connected to nature with very little external stimuli. Sounds very boring maybe, but for me at the time, it was amazing. It was so amazing because I started to really sync with nature in a way that I'd never done before, where I started to be so present with everything around me, which completely shifted the way I felt myself as well. So that was leading up to this moment where I kind of dissolved. And I feel really, because my nervous system was so relaxed, I was so open to life. I was really connected, and I was in a place where I was in full surrender in a way to what was, that I just merged with everything.
Wow. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
I wonder, Were you doing any practices like meditation to also become aware of like your internal guidance, where you feel you need to go to get clarity on, because a lot of things are happening and you have like weighing like, should I do this? Should I do that? Were you doing any practices to
Yeah.
help you support your mental and your health? And
So at that time, I was very much into Ayurveda.
Mhm.
So Ayurveda, for the people who don't know, it's the sister science of yoga. And it's really a way of looking at life from energetic perspective, where the 5 elements, earth, fire, water, air, and ether, all have different energetic qualities that manifest in different ways inside your body, inside your mind, inside everything in the world. Everything has energetic qualities. So I was very immersed in studying that at the time. And I've never been someone that has been a student of one lineage. I've been really moving around from like, oh, this is interesting. Oh, this I find interesting. But there's like, if I look back at that time, there's no specific consistent practice that I would do every day that was the same. I was very much about embodiment. So really feeling through my body and expressing through my body whatever was moving. And yeah, I was using yoga as a tool for that to drop in. Um, but like, yeah, and of course there was meditation in different ways. There was dynamic meditation, there was seated meditation, but I've never had like a consistent daily, every day, every morning, every evening. No, there were moments where I was very much into meditation and I did a vipassana and those things. But it was very intuitive, I would say. It was very intuitive.
Mm. Would you say you had not a lot of trouble to connect with your feelings and your body and your intuition?
Yeah, I feel when I started my journey with Thai massage, that
Hmm.
really opened up
Yeah.
a new connection with my body. And in a way, that was 3 months where every day you would give and receive massage, and you're going deep into the different layers of
Mm.
not only the physical, but also the energetic
Mm.
body, where you really start to feel that connection between physical, energetically, emotional. And through that work, I started to experience, for example, my yoga practice in a very different way, because energy started to come into place that I suddenly could feel.
Hmm.
And it allowed me to drop out of my head and into my body. Because before, I would say I've always been quite intuitive, but I grew up in a family and in a society and schooling system. It was very much about the mind, very rational, very logical, very analytical, um, in a way goal oriented, problem solving. Like, yeah, emotions are there, but like just rationalize them, like don't go too much into them, which I was all very good at. I felt like I was very, very much together, you know?
Hmm.
So in a way, I feel like I also had to reparent myself or recondition myself to feel more without rationalizing it, without
Mm.
changing it, without moving away from the emotions. I started to do the opposite, to move into the emotions.
Mm.
And embodied practices really helped me to do that, to get out of my mind and start to feel more.
Yeah.
And that effect is you become more sensitive as you start to feel more. And as you feel more, you're more open to life. And then there's more information coming in, and it's like this big
Mm.
cosmic thing that starts to happen.
I,
Yeah.
I wonder when you start to give massages and you start to become aware of these subtle things, is there such a thing as when somebody is massaging you that there is like a person can take on energy from the person or give some energy, and that there needs to also be some kind of cleansing ritual or something like that? Do you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So when working with energy, there's different ways that you can work with energy. So for example, if you're doing tantra massage, and I don't mean like sexual tantra massage, but a tantra massage where you're connecting your energy with the energy of the person that you're working with, you're creating a circuit between both of you, where you're consciously directing and receiving. So for sure, like you're merging your field in that sense where that becomes one. And it is very helpful if you have a certain sensitivity when you're taking something on, that you have tools to like release that, let that go. And that's where you can also start to, you as a practitioner, process stuff for your clients, which I'm not necessarily sure if that is what is supposed to happen. I think it's great to hold space for someone to allow them to move through that themselves. But yeah, then you can totally work with cleansing rituals and creating a strong field and a strong space in order to not get too mixed up in that cloud of energy. Now, with Reiki, for example, it's quite different, because Reiki it's one-dimensional energy healing. It's energy moving down through the body and out through the hands. So you're not creating a circuit. There's not a connection in that way. So in that way of working, the risk of what you were talking about is not so much there, because the field you're setting up is very different.
Yeah.
So again, it depends on how you work, what your intentions are, how you connect, in my experience.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I remember I saw somewhere that they say in India they don't like to touch a lot because they don't want to take on the energy of the person, so they do the bowing motion a lot, so as not to touch and not to take on the information.
Yeah, of course, the more intense your interaction is with someone, the deeper the imprint is that leaves on you. But I think the more you get into the world of energy, you will realize that you can get very energetically entangled with someone without ever having to touch them, and you can touch somebody without getting entangled with them energetically at all. So it's all quite relative.
And also that at a certain point, you see it's all energy. And yeah. What are you doing right now? Like, what things are you doing right now?
So right now, like, I'm living in Bali together with my partner and my son. And at the moment, most of the thing, or the thing that I'm mainly doing, it's really Kundalini activation. So it's really creating spaces and supporting people in connecting with their own essence. And with that, I run retreats that are based on this work. With that, I'm running trainings that are based on this work. But everything revolves around that.
Why do you choose to do this right now?
Because I feel this is really what is needed right now in this time. And like, if I look at all the different varieties, the different modalities that I have worked with in the past, and see how that impacted people, like the transformation coming from that work, versus this modality, like the impact it has on people's lives is just times 1,000. I didn't intend this to be my like main thing, because for a long time this was very niche. This was very weird work, and for many years I just worked with people one-on-one. I didn't work in group settings. I only started working in group settings for the last couple of years. And when I started doing that here in Bali, I really thought this was going to be something on the side, you know, and not, but literally within a couple of weeks, it started to explode. And there were just so many people asking and coming. So I would add a session and add another session. And within 2 or 3 months, there was just way more requests than what I could facilitate.
Yeah.
So I just decided, okay, apparently this is what needs to happen. I just follow the energy.
Why do you think
And
people...
how that will unfold, like, I don't know, but for now this is really what is flowing in my life. So I'm here for it. I'm the channel.
Why do you think people keep coming back?
Why do I think people keep coming back? Because I feel they really notice the shifts. Like, if you're doing something and you don't feel like this benefited you, you're not going to come back. And if you're like, oh my gosh, like this really shifted something for me, like, yes, you're going to come back. And that can be really big or really small, but the transformations are very, very real. And then of course there's people that are intrigued, like, what is this work? And this is very interesting. So I think a lot of people initially come from that place, not really knowing how this can potentially shift their lives, or that they might be up for a ride, or that their lives might radically change, but they're like, oh, that looks interesting, I'm going to try that out. And that's also why, like, in my sessions, like you noticed, I talk quite a bit, like I have quite a long introduction before we start the actual transmission, because I just don't want people to come in like in between their gym appointment and their lunch and work with something that's very sacred, and then just walk out as if you just went to a yoga class, you know, because the approach of this work is just different. And I just feel it's so transformational that people keep coming back, because the effects are there, like they're undeniable.
So your introduction is really good, like really good. Can I ask you to do sort of an introduction, to tell it to me as if for the first time, because it's so good. Really,
Okay.
really.
So as if this would be a class, you mean? You would like me to do the
Yeah,
introduction?
yeah.
Okay. Okay. So when we talk about Kundalini energy, we really talk about the essence of who you are, the essence of what you are. So Kundalini, it's a Sanskrit term that refers to your own life force energy in its purest essence, as in consciousness that has manifested as life force energy. So you can think of this as, it's energy that you see everywhere expressed in the universe. So when two cells come together in the womb and an embryo starts to grow, and every cell knows exactly what to do, like that force, that is Kundalini Shakti. And that force is you. So it's not that there is you, this person, and then there is this mystical force that is Kundalini, you know, and that's separate from you. Like, no, it is you. It is your purest essence. So the word kund or kunda, it means coiled. And it also means a place that holds, like a place that is dedicated to something specific. So in Sanskrit, a kund for the fire, it's a fire pit. So in the yogic and tantric scriptures, this energy is symbolized like a snake, and a snake that's laying coiled up at the base of your spine. So it's that part of you that has not manifested fully, because we all have parts of our consciousness that has manifested, and part that has not manifested, that's laying dormant. So often when we refer to Kundalini Shakti, it's referring to that dormant potential that is symbolized at the snake in those scriptures. Now, when this energy begins to activate, to manifest, it will start to move up through the main channel, Shushumna Nadi. And along the way, it starts to remove blockages. It starts to activate the energy body. It starts to rewire your whole system until eventually this whole pathway is free, and energy is not only moving up, but consciousness is moving down freely, and there's a free flow of energy in both directions. And when that happens, you can have this experience of truth, this experience of non-duality, the experience of your essence, which is beyond separation. So if there's anything as such as like a goal to this practice, and in my opinion, any kind of spiritual practice, it is to connect with that essence, with that truth. And along the way, as blockages are being removed and your energy body is coming online, like many different things that can be very interesting can happen. But in a way, they're byproducts. They're byproducts of you coming into alignment, of you coming online. And the way I like to think of this is like, you're like a Christmas tree. You know, we're all like a Christmas tree, and the Christmas tree has lights on the outside. And then there are many lights in the tree that for a lot of us, they're not on. They're not on yet. So the process of awakening is really to bring all those parts of you back online until eventually you're fully illuminated, you're fully tapped in, you're fully connected, you're fully online. And you're living from that place. So this work is really about bringing all the lights back online. Now you might have worked with energy for sure without realizing it. There's many practices out there like yoga or tantra or breath work where you're using tools to achieve a specific result. For example, you're doing a yoga practice that is grounding you, or you're doing a breathwork practice that is expanding you, or you're doing a specific practice that builds a lot of fire into the system that then you can use for transformation, etc. Now, this is what I would call, they're all practices on the path of will, where you're actively doing certain things to create a specific result. And that is great. Like, those practices really work. There's a reason why they've been around for so long, for thousands and thousands of years. But there is a paradox there, you know. It can sometimes seem that if you are on this path, that you have to do a lot of work. It's a lot of work, like doing your meditation every day, changing your diet, doing your yoga, working through your childhood wounds. And then maybe one day, when you're lucky, one day you will get there, like there in the future, like far away. And there's a whole road to travel, you know, which in a way, yeah, for sure. Like, as human beings, our human avatar, we have layers to shed, and we have work to do, and we have deconditioning to do. And there's something else that's true at the same time, which is you are already whole. There is nothing that you have to do to be more of your essence, which is pure consciousness. You are already that. So this work is really about connecting with that what is now. And for the mind, that might be a little bit difficult, you know, because we are so used in following the linear path. Oh, I want to achieve this. What do I need to do? Okay, A, B, C, then I get there. Yeah, that can get you quite far in the human experience, but it has a limit because it's linear. You know, if you want to expand into the full multidimensional being that you are, at one point you need to expand in the multidimensionality. It cannot just be linear. So this work is really about that. And how to say, like, it's really the masculine versus the feminine, the path of action versus the path of doing. Sorry, the path of action versus the path of being. No, the path of action versus the path of being. Now I'm confused. The masculine versus the feminine, the path of doing versus the path of being. And this is really about surrendering instead of the doing. Yeah, so your mind might be like, okay, if I'm not doing much here. Like how does this work? How do these transmissions work? The best way I can explain this is everything is energy. So everything has frequency. And frequency carries information, right? So I'll be like a tuning fork where I'll be holding a very specific frequency. And your system will begin to attune to that energy. Because in the quantum field, there is no separation. And I know that's difficult for the mind to understand, but there is no separation. So energy is constantly influenced by energy. It's one big soup, where the higher frequency will kind of lift up the rest. So that's the easy part where you don't have to do anything. Now, what happens in the session or how you feel actively this is affecting you, like the truth is we don't know. Because this is not a linear process. It's very personal. So for some people, it's very physical. What can happen in the session is your physical body begins to move as the amount of energy increases. And this is involuntarily movement, where your body begins to move without you being the doer. And this can start small, like little electrical shocks in your lower abdomen, or much larger movements where your spine begins to undulate. Your hands might move up and begin to make mudras or tapping different parts of your body. You might begin to shake, or your feet might begin to flap. All things that your mind would be like, what's going on? Is this safe? Like, are you sure you're not the doer? So if this happens, just allow the body to move. This is the path of surrender. It's just simply energy increasing and the body starting to release tension patterns. Now, it's not the goal of this practice, really important, because sometimes people come, they've seen those videos where you see someone laying on the mat and be like a floppy fish. And they're like, oh, interesting, I want to experience that. It's a byproduct. And this process is really internal. So we cannot see it from the outside. It's very boring to make a video of that, right? There's two things you can see that happen sometimes, which is physical movement and emotional release. Everything else is internal. So I always tell people not to focus on physical movement because it's not what it's about. It's a byproduct. It might be that your experience is much more subtle, that your physical body is still, but you feel energy. Energy starts to move and you feel tingling sensations or sensations of heat or coldness or pressure or sharpness, or even as if something is moving inside of you, but it's not a thing. All of that is energy. You're starting to perceive energy. Now, depending on what parts of your Christmas tree, so to say, are coming online, your experience can really vary. So for example, if there is a lot of energetic movement around the second chakra, it might be that your experience is more orgasmic. You start to feel orgasmic waves throughout your whole body, which has nothing to do with you fantasizing about your lover or anything like that. It's simply the frequency of orgasm that we can experience in any part of our being because it's simply a frequency. If there's a lot of energy moving around here, the third eye, or what yogis call Ajna chakra, your experience might be more visual. So Ajna chakra is related to the pineal gland in the physical body. And it has many different functions there. But on an energetic level, it's like a portal. Like it's like a portal from where you can connect into different dimensions, to different realities. Because what we can see with our eyes, it's part of reality, but it's definitely not all of reality. There is a lot more that we don't see, but most of the time we're not aware of it because we're not plugged in, we're not tapped in that dimension yet. So what starts to happen as you are coming online, you will begin to perceive more information from the field that has been there all along, but you simply were not aware. Now, this can manifest in many different ways, but very common things are you with your eyes closed, seeing colors or receiving symbols, other types of messages or information that people would call downloads. You can even go on a journey, an astral journey, where you connect with people that have passed away or other more multidimensional beings that are not from this planet. That sounds pretty crazy to the human mind, but it's very real. So yeah, just be open to any kind of experience that is more astral in nature. It can also be that you get emotional in the session. So what happens in those sessions is the amount of energy that starts to increase. Now, as the energy increases, it will begin to flush out any parts that have been stuck in the system. And those parts are unprocessed emotions, which we all have because we're human. So first of all, if that happens, it's great, because it's an opportunity to process, to release, to feel, to get it out. Second, that might come with sounds. So there might be screaming, there might be crying, there might be weird language coming out of your mouth that your mind has no idea what that means. And all of that, it's simply energy in motion. So if that happens, just allow that to move. Like, try not to analyze it in the moment, because it will take you out. Like, it's an opportunity for you to really feel on deeper layers. And it doesn't matter what kind of emotion that is. If it's sadness or bliss, of course, as human beings, we have a preference. Most of us prefer to feel bliss over sadness. However, they're both equally portals into connection with Source. But the key is you have to fully open to it. You have to fully become it, and not try to push away certain parts that are not comfortable, or trying to reach some other state that you really wanted to experience. That is not surrender. Then you go into action, into the director's role again. So this is the path of surrender, and that means it's an active surrender, to be in full acceptance of what is, without trying to change anything. Fully opening, yes, and more, please. So that's always my invitation to you, is to really dive deep into that what is, and be surprised by what you find there. Now, it might also be that your experience is much more subtle, right? As we're working with subtle energy, and we all have different sensitivity, we all have days that we can be a bit mental. So it can be that if this is your level of sensitivity today, energy is moving, and it starts to move, and at one point it is here, and you're 15 minutes into the session, and your awareness is here, and you're like, I'm not feeling anything, like nothing's happening. I'm wasting my time, like what's going on? Like, don't trust this, because first of all, we're very limited in our perception of everything. And second, this is a process, really important. It's not an on or off switch. So it can be that second or third session, the energy starts to come up a bit higher and you begin to notice, or you begin to attune to that more subtle nature of that energy that is there. Or I even have people that never really notice anything in the session or anything special. It's just like a good meditation. And sometimes they say, well, this is not for me. I don't really believe in this. This didn't do anything. And then they come back a week or a little while later, and they all have their own stories of, oh my God, you don't know what happened. And it's from things of changing the way you eat overnight, to letting go of mental patterns that are not helpful, anxiety, phobias that fall away. Like, this is work that works a lot on the subconscious, on a subconscious level. And if you are removing an energetic knot, you might not notice that on like the more dense level. But if this knot has been removed, has dissolved, the charge of that makes you do certain things suddenly disappears. So approach this as, this is going to be an hour of meditation. And you might or might not have an experience, and the experience really doesn't matter, because what matters is what starts to happen outside of those sessions as you are rewiring, as you are coming online. And that is where the true shifts are. Like the session itself, I see it as it's the planting of the seed or the watering of the seed. But then in that moment, like, not the real transformation is happening. That's later as it starts to grow and blossom. So just relax, be open, and see this as you're going to feel yourself as deeply as you can. Now, I'm not putting anything inside of you. Really important. Like, remember, this works through resonance. So if you're going to have a felt experience, it will be your own energy. Maybe in a different frequency or a different intensity, but it is you. I simply help you to remember, like the magic is in you. And eventually, if we zoom out, there is no such thing as you or me, because we're all parts, all fractals of the same energy of source. It's also a very safe way of working with Kundalini energy, because, you know, it's a very powerful transformation that can start once we kind of open up this box. And I get a lot of questions from people who think this is dangerous, which is a really good question. And it's good to be cautious around working with Kundalini energy. So what can happen on the path of will, where you're doing very strong practices, that you can blast a lot of energy into your system. It's like you're building a rocket ship through specific practices, and then you're launching it, you're shooting it up. Well, if you do that, you better make sure that your container is ready to hold that intensity, because otherwise, yes, it can become chaotic. And therefore, on the yogic path, you do a lot of work to prepare, to detox, to prepare the whole body-mind energy system, to hold more energy, to remove all the blockages. So once you shoot up the rocket ship, like, it's all smooth and you're ready. Now, the way that I work is much more gradual. So we're not launching the rocket ship. This works through resonance. So energy is coming up simply until where your system is ready to hold it. And then it will start to work wherever that is needed. And therefore, it's much more gradual. It's not that you're immediately being blown out of your mind and dysfunctional for a long time for most people. Yeah, it's much more gradual. So the changes that are happening, you actually have time to integrate that in your life. And sometimes it's even that subtle that you don't necessarily notice immediately. And I think that is really good, because we're sometimes so addicted to those high peak experiences, like, oh, we want to have this mystical experience or this huge catharsis on the mat, and the more intense the better. That's not this. Like, intense, it can be very intense, but sometimes there is simply a very small click being made, it's very small connection, but that connection leads to a huge new flow of energy that is completely shifting you. But in the moment, it doesn't seem like much, because it didn't come with a huge blow. Yeah, I think those are the most important things I usually talk about.
It was really good. Thank you. I've gone to a lot of sessions, and I must say, like, the way that you explain it, it's so, like a present, like with with the lintje, met the strikje.
Yeah.
It's so
With a tie.
finished, so done. Yeah, it's really good. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. Thank you for receiving.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
So
think it's really important, because we're still human, we're in this mind, body, spirit vehicle. And yes, some of this work, it's really beyond the mind. And there's a magical, mystical part that comes through grace that cannot be explained, that cannot be written down, that is not meant to be understood on that level. And at the same time, there are a lot of things that we can understand on the mental level. And to have that understanding, it makes it easier to approach this from a place that is helpful and supportive for the practice. Also that you're a bit more prepared for what's going to come. So I find it very important to do that and not just lay people down on the mat and start the session. No.
I wonder, do you ever have like information downloads coming through?
Yeah, absolutely. Like in the session or in general?
I think both.
Yeah, so in the session, I receive quite a lot of information from people. For me, I have two senses, like two main senses through which I receive information. The first one is kinesthetic. So I feel a lot, like I feel, ooh, there's this blockage here. I feel this emotion or this like, oh, almost purging, or like it's a physical sensation that I start to feel what is happening with the person or with the field. And then there is a knowing. So that can be information, that can be downloads, that can be like, I just know. That doesn't come from my mind knowing, but I know. Sometimes I see. I'm not super visual with colors and auric fields and those things. It's not a sense that I have super developed. Sometimes I do see like beings or entity cords or ancestors, like that I see quite a lot, like ancestral lineages or that coming in or moving through in sessions. So yeah, different senses coming in and receiving information. Yeah.
For instance, also for when you have like ideas to organize certain events or certain trainings or certain retreats, do you view that as information being downloaded, like, oh, this is the next thing that you need to do, or you think it's just your mind?
I think it's both. I think there's both involved. So there are certain things that I really feel called to do. Like, for example, or I need to be in a certain country at a certain time. And I'm like, why do I need to be there? Or feeling very drawn to like, this is right or this is wrong, like this is aligned, this is not. And then there's also like the human me that's just planning things, you know, from a different place. But I feel pretty guided in how I work. For example, like I didn't plan this to kind of grow into this big thing that it became. I thought this was going to be just one of the things that I would offer. So yeah, I feel guided, and I also feel human in the same way. Yeah.
Do you actively pray or ask for guidance?
Yeah, so I do have quite a strong connection to my higher being, to my spirit guides, to source, like, and not as in the religious sense of like, I do have an altar at home, for example, that I use for practices, that I connect with in a specific way. But I connect through sex, through being in nature, through being in my body, through life. Like really, life in a way is a ceremony, and that is one of the beautiful things of living here in Bali. That ceremony is such a big part of life, of traditional life here. It's really being in touch with the invisible that is there, that is not specifically connected to a practice. So if there is things in my life that I feel lost, or that I feel uncertain, or that I need clarity around, for sure I create space for that, to sit with that, to feel, to ask for guidance. And sometimes that guidance comes very like immediate, but usually it comes through the field, as in how what life reflects to me. Yeah. And sometimes I also ask for help, like with certain things. Like last year I had an accident with my scooter, with my motorbike here. I drove very, very slow, like through a small path in the rice fields with my son. And a dog jumped out of the bushes and jumped in front of my wheel, and my motorbike fell sideways. Fortunately, I went so slow that I just held on to my child so he wouldn't hurt himself. But at the same time, my lower leg came underneath my motorbike, and my lower leg got twisted, and I completely broke and tore everything you can break in your knee. Not just the bone, but also almost all the ligaments torn. And I was like, wow, why did this happen? Why did this happen? Because I felt I was very much in alignment, like that. It was not coming from a need to like slow down or pause or being in misalignment. So, and I felt like every time I tried to reach out or to like feel into what was going on, I could not. I've never experienced that before. So I was like, okay, I need some guidance here. I need someone else to support me in this, because right now, for some reason, I cannot drop in with this. So it's been an interesting journey to see what was going on there. And yeah.
Did you find out what was going on there?
Yeah, I found out, like, I'm not sure if I can speak about that
Yeah.
here, but it had to do with like karma from a past life that was still connected in a way to the earth that, yeah, that I needed to resolve. And that made a lot of sense to me, actually, when this woman, she was a medium and she went into it, and I was on a call with her, and she opened up the screen and she was immediately like, oh my gosh, like what happened? And she never met me, she didn't know, and she immediately was like, okay, like this is what's going on. So yeah, I find it very interesting to approach life from that place. Like, yeah, in a way, I'm quite rational and down to earth. And there is the mystical and the unseen that rules so much of our lives that we have no clue. Like, we think we are directing our life and we think we're in control. And that is so much an illusion. But for me, I like that accident really forced me even deeper into surrender in a certain way. Like, I couldn't move for weeks. They told me it would be a year before I could maybe properly walk again, that I might need a knee reconstruction, because now they could only fix the bone and not all the ligaments that were broken, because then you first need a stable bone to connect them to, you know. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's healing from the linear level, from the linear perspective. This takes so long, and those are the results, blah, blah, blah. When I heard that, I was crying. I was like, oh my gosh, like, will I ever be able to walk again? And half an hour later, I was like, wait a second, like, what do I, like, how do I work? Like, the quantum field, like, the quantum healing, like, there is no such thing. There is another way to approach this. So I was like, okay, let's put this into practice. And let's see, like, okay, I hear like the Western linear approach. I don't buy into it. And let's see, like, let's approach this as an experiment. And that's what I did. I approached it as an experiment. I really started to put myself in a really high frequency and like do internal, it's like internal surgery of really visualizing my whole knee, ligament by ligament, and like reconstructing it while I was in a high frequency state. And within 3 months, I was walking again, and I didn't have another surgery. They checked my knee and they're like, well, everything is very solid and stable, and doesn't seem like there's anything wrong with the ligaments.
Wow. You did this every day?
Yeah.
How long were you doing this for?
I think for like in that intensity, like 2 months. Because the first few weeks were were rough. I think the first week I just dropped in, and then I I put myself in a high frequency state, and I would still do transmission. And when I was doing transmission, I could feel like the energy like pulsating and working. I was like, okay, how can I amplify this? Like, so yes, this is the natural like intelligence, and how can I amplify this? And I just decided to do this. Like it's like I know Joe Dispenza used the technique of visualization to fix his spine. So I was like, what if I combine that with like high frequency Kundalini state and see what happens? So then it became it became interesting. And like looking back at that period, I don't look back at it as, oh my gosh, those were 3 difficult months. Like, yeah, I had to change a few things in my life. Like I couldn't really go out, I couldn't walk, but then I had people come to me, I had food come to me, I just had to surrender to not be out much. But other than that, and dive in and be like, okay. And I feel this was really, in a way, a test for me to even go deeper into the potential of healing in non-linear ways.
Were you doing this for like an hour every day or a couple of times per day? Did you have like a certain protocol that you used, or?
Yeah, I think it was like 1.5, 2 hours a day that I would do this actively.
Okay. Just once in the morning or during the day?
Yeah, depending on how my day was, like, because I would still do sessions. So, but I would take time at one point in the day to do this. Most of the days, of course, sometimes there was a day I didn't do that, but yeah, it was like a regular daily. I was like, this is the only thing I can do. And I don't know how it would have healed if I would not have done that. Like, you never know. You never know. But I'm really glad I did it.
Thank you for sharing. So during the introduction, you said that you're like a tuning fork and you hold a certain frequency. Now, in the universe or in our reality, there are so many different frequencies. What specific frequency are you holding? And what is this energy that is helping us to go through our process?
So it's a connection that I make in the field from the earth, the energy of the earth, which in a way is connected to Kundalini, to consciousness, which I put up there just for the polarity, you know. So there's earth, there's density, there's energy, there's sky, there's consciousness, there's nothingness. So the merging of those two, so I open and connect to earth. I open and connect to consciousness. And I let that merge in my heart, and that expands my whole field, my whole system. It's like the me falls back. It's almost like it falls out. Like, of course, I'm there, I'm directing my body, I'm walking around. But it's the frequency of everything. So it's not like I can say, oh, this is like 756 hertz. That's like that's my tuning fork. Like, I don't know anything about hertz. But it's this expansion, this frequency, this vibrancy. It vibrates on a very specific note. It's a very specific frequency that once it starts to fill my system,
You're back.
Okay. Yes.
You said when this frequency hits your body and it starts to fill, and then you were cut off.
When it starts to feel, it becomes this amplification of 1,000 times of everything. I don't really know how to put it. It's difficult to put it into words because like there is me, there's Marieke that has a specific energetic frequency and a quality with how I move through life. And in the session, like that's very much present as I'm moving through life. Mm-hmm. But in the sessions, this almost falls away as it's being washed over by something that's much greater and much bigger and much more vast and alive. And it's like, it's almost, it's not taking my breath away on the physical level, but it's almost as if that feeling that it's expanding me so much that there's no more space for me. I think that's a better way to describe it. Mm-hmm. So that is not me. The me, the ego me, the Marieke me. It is me and you in its purest form, done from all the character stuff. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Does that make any sense?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So nowadays, there are a lot of facilitators facilitating different Kundalini sessions and Kundalini workshops. And let's say if I go to a session with you, and then mm-hmm. I'll go to another facilitator who trained with somebody else than you, and they do this process, and mm-hmm. the energy may seem a bit different, or the quality of the energy or the quality of the workshop may seem different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like why can that be? Why does that happen?
Yeah. So that's a good question, and that also brings us to one of the issues that I see happening right now in this field. So if we talk about energy, we talk about Kundalini, we talk about source, like that has nothing to do with anyone specific. However, as you're channeling this, it's still moving through you, your system, as a channel. So it will always, it's like, what kind of glasses do you put on? Like you have sunglasses in many different shades. Or you have good quality glasses and you have bad quality glasses and you have scratch ones and you have in many different colors. It will affect in how you perceive, in what you perceive. So as a facilitator, I think it's really, 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 really important to have gone through your own process first. And let's first make it clear, like, I am by no means enlightened. And I also have shit to work on. Like, we're all human beings. Yeah. And that comes with certain shadows. Now, anyone can learn how to channel. But how clear is your channel? And that I find a big responsibility to have is clear your channel as much as you can. And from what place are you working? And because you will transmit also your own field. It's not your own energy, but it moves through your own field with your own distortions. So there needs to be a certain level of cleanliness of the channel in order to facilitate a transmission in a way that is actually helpful and not creating distortion. then I see, like, I have lots of people approaching me. Oh, Marieke, can you train me? I want to train you. I want to acquire this power. How much should I pay you? Blah, blah. For real, like I could get very rich, like if I would say yes to those things. It comes from this place of power, of ego, of wanting to get something out of this. And it's part of like the commercialization of the sacred. It's part of using the sacred to gain power is very, very dangerous. And therefore, for me, like the people that I work with, as in like that I train, it's very, very important that in their own process of Kundalini maturation in their system, it has stabilized in the heart. Because if it has not stabilized in the heart, and yeah, they're activated, but like what shadows are being played out and what is actually magnified there. So I think it's very, very important to be really discerning in who you receive transmission from, because we have to realize that as long as you're in this body, we're not completely clear. We're not completely free of human distortions. Yeah. So yeah, be discerning. I would say that.
Thank you for that. So one more follow-up question to that.
Yeah.
So you trained with Ven and Wong from CAP, right?
Yeah, I trained with many different people, but also with Venant, yes.
So nowadays there are like facilitators who trained with him, and they now have their own trainings. They train people and they change the name. I wonder if they then train new people, or if you would train new people. Are you teaching them the same as what Venom does? Is it like the same when you are taught by him to channel this frequency to give these sessions, and then you teach other people? Is it the same, or is there a shift, or is there a difference?
I think it's never 100% the same, because I am not Venant, and Venant is not his teacher. And so, yeah, there is the flavor of the transmission, so to say, that moves through the person that you're receiving transmission from. And that is something that you also embed in your system. So yes, you're taking in that flavor, and that becomes part of your DNA, but it still moves again through you, through your system. So in a lineage, it works like that there is a specific flavor or a specific tradition or a specific frequency, in a way, that moves down. But that doesn't mean that like receiving CAP from different facilitators will feel very different while they've all been trained by the same person. So it doesn't say that much. What matters is, because eventually what matters most is how clear is your channel? Like, are you actually ready to facilitate this for others, and not as a gimmick, not as you shooting cool videos and post them on Instagram? Like, look what a magical priestess I am right now. This ego, like that's something that really, that I really don't agree with. It creates like a spiritual ego where you create separation, where you think that you are special, that you have certain powers, that people will put you on a pedestal because you have in their eyes a gift or something special, because which they cannot understand yet, that makes you special. And yeah, of course, for a lot of us, for our ego, that feels really good to buy into that. And I think it's really, really important to come back to, this is not about me. And that's something I really also try to emphasize, is this is not about me. This has nothing to do with me in a way. It has as little to do with me as possible, because I have to get out of the way. And of course, I have a responsibility that comes with that, to be as clear as a vessel as that, but it has nothing to do with me. So this projection of projecting myself out there as some kind of a special something, like, no, I'm not doing that.
What
And
is,
I that happen a lot. And yeah, I don't think that's the way to go.
thank you. What is the quickest, fastest way to stabilize in the heart?
The quickest way to stabilize in the heart. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. Again, it's not something that you can force, like, okay, now I'm going to stabilize in the heart. It will happen once you have worked through your lowest 3 chakras. And in a way, the way to do that is shadow work. So in a way, shadow work will remove the blockages, will bring the subconscious to the conscious. So that gets into the light, so that gets cleared. So there is shadow work to do in relationship to those lower 3 chakras. And that's a constant questioning, like in any action in your life, like, where does it come from? If you talk about the heart, does it come from love for something? Does it come from fear for something? Because eventually every action that you do comes down to one of those choices. And what is truly driving you there? Like, how much do you trust life? How much do you lead from love instead of from fear?
Mm-hmm.
So can you begin to live from love? And how does that reflect in your actions? And that surrender to life, in a way, to everything that is, has very much to do with that. But this, like, what drives every action? I think that's an important one.
So, can I ask you about the quality of devotion? Is it active for you? Is it in your life? Is it there? And at what time in your life did it become apparent? And how did it transform, or how is it now?
Yeah, I'm very devotional. um, I think my initial experience really put me on my knees, maybe even in the most literal way, to surrender and trust something much bigger than me. And that devotion can come out in many things, like a devotion to my child, a devotion to my partner, like a devotion in lovemaking, really big one. For me, that's a way to really express devotion and devotional energy, and that praying as in life and gratitude, and this offering also in how can I be of service? How can I be of service? Not what can I get from this? How can I be of service? And with every session, before every session, I always take a couple of minutes to, like, tune in and connect and consecrate this practice to the best of all, and to, like, use me as in use this vessel for the highest good of all. Or this is no longer about me, like this quality of I offer myself for the best of everything. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you. You talked about shadow work a bit before. Are there any teachers or techniques or other modalities that you use for shadow work or have used?
So lots of inquiry. Of course, Carl Jung is a great inspiration if you wanna learn more about shadow work. It's, for me, a lot of the shadow work. It's very much about what is life reflecting back to you, and do you actually sit with that information?
Mm-hmm.
So, what are ways that you're self-sabotaging? How do you self-sabotage? Like, what keeps coming up in your relationship? So if self-sabotage is coming up, what is there that you're not wanting to feel? So self-sabotage, relationship, triggers. Like, what are you triggered by? Oh, interesting. Okay, why am I so triggered by this? What part of that is actually inside myself that I do not recognize yet? That I have disconnected from because it was too painful and I was not loved for that part. So it's a conscious action to start to be aware of those things, those patterns not ruling your life, and actually investigate them. And investigate them from a place, I think, also with some playfulness around it. It doesn't all have to be so heavy and deep, but can you be like, how truly honest can you be? And like ask for reflection from people, because it's difficult to see yourself clearly. Like, it's almost impossible. So in relationships, like, start to look at those things. What is triggering you? Where you're self-sabotaging? What's showing up in your relationships? Like, those are three really simple, big ones. And then, yeah, there's, again, with what comes up, there's different tools and techniques you can use in how to integrate or how to work with it. But it's really, start getting fucking honest with yourself.
It's interesting, when you live life and then you make mistakes, and then you either keep repeating mistakes, or it's like you look at it and you sit with it and you really start to become sincere. Okay, where was I coming from? What do I really want? And what's in me creating these situation? Where was I coming from that was created?
Yeah.
You start to become more and more with that sincerity and realizing, oh, I have to be sincere. I have to be really sincere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a big one. Like, we have to stop bullshitting ourselves in a way, because it can be comfortable to just bullshit yourself and, yeah, not look at it and just keep on going. But yeah, life will keep reflecting it back to you
Yeah.
until you change it. So it's often seen as like, oh, it's difficult and it's heavy, and like, approach it more as a game. Like, how, okay, well, this is the feedback that I'm getting. Okay, interesting. Like, what is there?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think especially if you're facilitating, um, yeah, it's important to do that work, and to keep looking and keep removing patterns that are coming up if you want to be a clear channel.
For the energetic transmissions, how frequent do you recommend sessions?
It really depends. It really, really depends. So more is not necessarily better. So if people are very new to this and their experiences on the mat are not very intense, I, in the beginning, say it's really good to come let's say every other week, to have like a regular connection, to kind of get the process started. Now, this can come with big shifts. And sometimes there's a big shift that needs more time for integration, and you might need 1 or 2 months where you're sitting with everything that is shifting before you feel like, okay, now I'm ready for the next step. It can also create like, because there's a lot of amplification in your system, that you start to feel ungrounded. Like in those cases, I would usually not recommend to do more transmissions, because it will just amplify that energy moving upwards. And it's way more important to do grounding practices that are involving less movement of prana, but directing the energy down. Mm-hmm. So it really depends on what is happening in your process. If you feel that you're really close to a breakthrough and you're comfortable with holding more energy in your body, like I had a person here, he came for 3 weeks to Bali, and he did a couple of sessions a week with me. He was like, no, this is my intensive, I'm diving full into it, like this is my container, this is what I'm gonna do. And he was committed to that. And for him, that was really great. Like it really catapulted him into a huge transformation that he was ready for. And he was in a way committed to like, okay, I can feel this come, so let's go. That doesn't mean I would recommend that for everyone, because again, it's so individual that I don't recommend. Like I hear sometimes facilitators say like, oh, if you feel off after a transmission, it's good to come again quickly to get things straight and those kind of things. Like I don't think you can say anything general like that, because it really depends like what did shift, what came up, and what is the medicine for that specific thing that came up. Mm-hmm. Because it might be transmission, but it might be like a float in a sensory deprivation tank, putting lots of magnesium in your system and grounding you, like the opposite of more pranic flow. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it really depends. And if you have no idea and in the beginning you want to kind of get the process started, a regular practice, and then it's so individual. I can't say anything about that.
What's the use of the music? Why do you use music?
So music is energy, it's frequency, so it will resonate in different ways with your field. So there's music that will be very heart opening, that you start to feel like emotional in the heart because it touches something. There's music that more activates like the sacral, that is, or muladhara, more low and deep, like didgeridoo kind of vibes. So it activates the field in different ways. So for different people, that will have, some will really like, oh my gosh, this really resonated with me. And the other person was like, no, that didn't resonate at all. Same thing, because we have a different makeup. So to help stimulate and bring in different frequencies and like shake things up. Second is like, it takes you on a journey. It's like the way I build up my playlist, there's like waves in there. And those waves also allow for a certain journey to unfold, with stimulation, with stillness, with expansion, with contraction, to, again, the multifaceted aspect of this. Plus, like I always start with a meditation and a slower like entrance, because you want to put people in a certain trance state, in a certain brainwave state, where it's much easier to drop into this subtle realm and get out of your mind. And also music helps you there to get there. And then music helps you to stay present, because if you're silent for 1 hour, you're gonna be lost in your mind. So there's a few different aspects to music.
Yeah. Okay. Last year, I was doing a lot of sessions, and one of the most difficult parts when I was doing the sessions was when I went to so I was doing a lot of non-duality meditations before going to sessions, because I found it really put me like at this neutral state, and I would just be open to the experience instead of being like in a certain let's say energetic state, or open or closed. It was just neutral. For me, it was it was working. So I was going to sessions, and then I was doing a couple of sessions, like 3 sessions in a week, and then a couple of sessions more. And I started to have like these deep experience about this person. So during my session, all of a sudden, like energetically, like seeing a lifeline and seeing a past life, and then having this connection with a person, and then having like these deep feelings of remembrance, and then like feel like really like saying it also out loud, I love you, I will always choose you, all these kind of things. And then seeing that something happened, and then now seeing like in the future, like getting married or being together or all these kind of things. And then after the session, you get up, and all of a sudden you notice your body is like programmed to go that way. It's like
Yeah.
you're on this track, and you want to go that way, and you have this pull, and this other
Yeah.
person has like no idea what are you talking about.
Yeah.
uh,
You took like a quantum leap and they didn't come with you.
uh, so I had no idea how to contextualize this, how to be with this, because it was so strong. And you know, when you experience this, and if you go regularly to sessions, you start to trust it. You like, you know, it's bringing me so much, it's so deep, it's, I love it. And then all of a sudden this part comes up, and you're like, maybe I can't trust this. What can I trust then? You know, like all these kind of things. And I remember I told this part to you, and you told me about the awareness of different dimensions. Can you maybe do you remember what you
Mm.
told me? Or
Yeah, I remember vaguely like that. I remember that we spoke about this subject. I don't remember what I said about that, but um, I might have said something about like our soul or like our essence. If we talk about multidimensional beings, like we have our human aspect, which is also our ego construct and our human avatar that is very much part of our multidimensional being. It's an aspect of that. Then there is your higher being, or like your oversoul that that is not human, that is not connected to space or time, that um, that has a very different experience of reality. And as there are multiple dimensions in between, like those dimensions also, you're also animating those with different aspects of your essence. So for example, if you look at spirit guides in a way, they're also an aspect of you, just in a existing in a different dimension. So what can happen in those sessions is you start to activate parts of you, of your multidimensional self, that can be really confusing for the human avatar, because what you experience, like for example, if you talk about past lives as an example, we call it past lives because we experience reality in a 3D format where there is time and there is space. So now there's now, and then there's past, and then there's future, and that is linear. So past lives are past, like we already experienced them. Well, yeah, that's the human perspective of that. Like the higher self doesn't have that perspective. So on that dimension, there is no time and space. So all those aspects of you have different experiences simultaneously. Now, your human aspect can connect with some of those aspects that are having those experiences. And then you're like, oh, my past life, I did this or I did that. It's different expressions of you simultaneously. There's no such a thing as past or present. So then bringing those realizations that are very true and very real in that dimension, to bring that back into the human self, into the human Marieke, is like, what do I do what do I do with this
Mm-hmm.
information? And
Mm-hmm.
how is this information serving me? And there lies a big thing in integration of the work. How do you integrate the information that you perceive? And for me, it is very much about, because a lot of spiritual practices are about you connecting with your higher self, you connecting with that part of you which is eternal, which is your essence, which is great, because yes, we often forget about it as we're limited to our humanness. So that expands your awareness and it connects you with truth. However, that doesn't mean then that we need to dismiss and cut off from the human experience, because at the same time we're very much having this human experience that is temporarily, but it's also in this experience, it's also real. So it's about bringing all those parts, those different aspects of you, into alignment with each other that you have, and connection to your higher being, and at the same time anchoring that in the human being. Because if you just live in that or connect with those higher aspects, it becomes very confusing, because while you're still having this human experience, like as long as you're having this human experience, you better bring that into the mix and align those.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing. For me, that experience, it really like was an invitation to honor my feelings and honor what was true for me in the moment, and be open and willing to express it, because my immediate reaction was like, I don't want to be this desperate guy who's desperately in love with this woman, and express all that and put myself in that position where I can feel rejection, because obviously she's gonna reject me. So I don't want to go through that. So I was immediately like, I can't see you anymore, I can't come to your session anymore, because she was a facilitator. So I was like running away. And she's like, no, stay, come back. And it took me quite some time to really like ground it and really accept it and realize, oh, okay, I don't have to fear rejection. I can just, okay, apparently it's there for me, and it's active and it's alive. I can express it, and she says no, then it's no. But at least I allowed myself to express what I sincerely feel, and not judge that or block that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that can be super scary, because of course the human aspect will find it very weird and like, there's no reason to act like this. Like, why are you so in love? You barely know her, or like whatever like story there is that is being true to the energy, and that what you experience or connect with in the field doesn't necessarily manifest in the physical always. Like they can be two separate things, or it can be potential, or there can be another type of connection. But yeah, brave, that's great, really brave that you decided to like share that and be authentic. And also, yeah, I think that really opens the space.
During my sessions, I also noticed that oftentimes I get like breadcrumbs, like things that have been like floating around in my world or in my life. All of a sudden during the session, it becomes so clear. Oh, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this, da, 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 da. And it's like so like aligned, and I just have to follow the breadcrumbs. But then often when the time comes to do a certain thing, or to surrender to a certain experience or adventure, a new adventure into the unknown, there was like resistance. And then when I would resist, I would notice I would just be in this limbo, where I would feel really like just like I'm missing out, or I would have sometimes a negative experience. And then I would reflect and I would be like, oh, yeah, I didn't go where I was supposed to go. So
Yeah, and I think that's one of the beautiful things of this work, like what you call breadcrumbs. It's insight, like those insights of truth that we often, in a way, like this intuition, it's the first thing that comes to us before our mind kicks in and starts to analyze. And the analyzation of our mind often brings doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Because then it, like those different layers that start to accumulate on that subject, like it's hard to see that clearly. So once we remove that disturbance, then we can see again clearly. And I feel this work really, really helps you to get more in touch with your intuition, and also start to trust it more and to recognize it more in your daily life before your mind, like you start to catch it more often. And then your mind might come in and you start to doubt. And then if you pause and go back and like, oh, wait a second, I actually know.
Mm.
But do I dare to trust it? You know, that's then the second
Yeah.
one, but
You know,
it's the human
w-
thing. Do I need
when
to trust it?
when you talk about trust, when I analyzed almost all my fears, it was always about, am I willing to die, or am I willing to accept the risk of dying psychologically or physically? Was
Mm,
always something like that,
yeah.
that the fear was about eventually.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. Not now, but somewhere in the future.
Yeah, somewhere in the future.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. For all of us, it's very much about future things. It pulls us out of the now.
like, how would you say people can find their soul's calling?
Um, so there are two things with that. A lot of us, we're very conditioned by society in what is right, what is wrong, what is valued, what has status, prestige, um, those things. So that's one thing. Because our soul's calling, like we all have a specific, excuse me, specific energetic makeup. If we allow energy to flow freely through that energetic makeup, we will naturally be pulled towards certain things. Now, that flow gets distorted by conditioning. So part of that work, if you want to find your soul's calling, is start to do deconditioning and shadow work to let go of some of those patterns of what you think you should, what your parents told you to do, who you think you are, like all of those things, because that needs to soften a little bit, because otherwise it's like a very tight jacket from where you try to find freedom. So there's work to be done there. And then there is this, what sets your soul on fire? Like, where does the energy flow? And a lot of us, we try to find our soul's calling by thinking about it. By thinking about it and then taking steps on that. Like, it's again, that's a very rational way, but what would you naturally do? Like, what are things that you do when you don't have to do anything? And things that, it's often things that you don't even realize that you're doing because they're so normal to you. And you can look at, like, what did you like when you were a child and you were free? Like, what made you happy? But like because often people say, oh, just follow the energy. And like, yeah, follow the energy. It's true in a way, but if the energy flows through a very constricted and constructed way of seeing reality, that's not really gonna bring that to you. So it's about starting to deconstruct and
Mm-hmm.
truly look at those
Mm.
systems
Yeah.
before you can follow the energy
Yeah,
truly.
because if you have a lot of coping mechanisms or escape mechanisms, and you're
Yeah,
following the energy into
exactly.
living those
Ex-
out.
exactly. Or if most of your choices are coming again from fear, um, where's the love?
Mm.
And how can you, I think it's also often, what can you give to the world?
Mm.
What is your unique gift? Instead of what can I get from the world? What can I give to the world?
I think a very good question is also, if I would feel 100% safe, how would that change things for me?
Yeah, because then you can start to live from a place of love and not
Uh,
from fear. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah.
can you say something about living in Bali?
Yeah. So Bali is a very unique place. I've been coming here for a long time. And talking about devotion, like there's a lot of devotion here on the island. And the energy like is really taken well care of by the locals for a very long time. And you can feel that immediately when you set foot on Bali. Something I really, really love. Now, Bali also has a very strong energy of transformation. It will really accelerate processes for people. It's a place where it's very easy to flow with life. Like mostly the weather is really good. The cost of living is relatively low. You have access to good food. There's a conscious community. So life is easy in a way. It's easy to flow here. Now, Bali has been changing a lot over the last couple of years. I think Instagram and just in general, like new markets coming up, the amount of tourism that starts to increase here, it's insane. And it's very quickly overtaking the uniqueness of Bali and bringing the amount of tourists or expats like me compared to the local people. It is really starting to go out of balance, and it's making me sad, honestly, to see like we're destructing this place for what it was and in a very rapid pace. So I'm very grateful to have lived in Bali. I've been here for almost 9 years, or yeah, something like that. A little bit in and out, but yeah, I'm really grateful. I've had a beautiful and wonderful time here. I made great friends. It's a great place for me to offer this work. And it starts to really, it starts to change big time. Like, and still for me, it's a great place to raise a child, for example. Like I walk out of the door, I'm in the middle of rice fields everywhere. He never wears shoes. He climbs trees. He's living barefoot outside. There's very little pressure of doing and after school activities and a busy like life for kids. It's easy for me to have some help here in the house. So yeah, life is really beautiful. It's really beautiful here. I don't know if I'm going to spend the next 10 years in Bali, but so far it's been really a beautiful journey.
How are you on time?
Yeah, I'm good.
You still have time for some more questions?
I have time for some more questions until like 2:15.
All right. Well, what time is it now?
What time is it now? Oh, sorry, 3:15. I have like 15 minutes.
Okay. Okay.
Left.
So living this lifestyle that you live, facilitating, having kids, how do you manage all that?
Yeah, good question. So having kids, in a way, it's a blessing and a curse. Not a curse, but it's like it's supportive and it's not supportive. So having a child really forces me to constantly ground in the physical and in the very mundane human tasks. Waking up early, making breakfast, taking kids to school, reading bedtime stories, being present with them. Like it forces me to be very much here. With the work that I do, it really expands me in so far beyond the human body that I think I have. The reason I have kids is because they force me to ground and they force me to be here. It's also a lot because, as you might have noticed, like when you're going through this process, you get much more sensitive to everything and you need a lot more alone time to process and to just simply be. Now, that is not a luxury that I have a lot, to have actually alone time. It's much better now than when my son was much smaller. So that I find challenging sometimes. I would love to have more time to just be, because I know that would benefit me and my work. However, I'm also really grateful to be a mom and to have developed that aspect of me and to ground me. It's not always what I want, but I know in that sense it's really supportive. So it's a lot, it's a full life, but I also really like the kind of the extremes or the polarities in that it's not just one thing. And I feel in a way our human experience is also, of course, we all have our own paths, but for me, I feel there is a desire to really manifest and connect with all those different aspects, those different archetypes that are within me. That is the mother, that is the lover, that is the teacher, that is the healer, that is however, whatever you want to call those. Like, it's not either or. And of course, there's times in your life where one is much more in front than the other. Like when I had a newborn, like life was very different than now. And to flow with that. But I love the variety, and I love the fullness of life that it brings. And I definitely desire more stillness sometimes.
How do you teach your children? Like, how important is education to you? Because there are different forms of education.
Yeah, and the world is also changing very fast. So the way that we used to have education, or how that was helpful, is not necessarily the same as 20 years ago. Well, the system didn't really change. So for me, it's very important to learn emotional skills, social skills, to get to know yourself and to be comfortable in your own skin. And from there, exploring the world from a safe and anchored place, where, of course, we all need to learn certain things, certain academic skills, and we need to read properly and write properly. But like my son is 6, so he's still quite young. We have lots of alternative education here in Bali that is different from the Netherlands or many other countries, where right now he's going to a small school where there's 10 kids in a class and they work child-led. So per semester, the children decide what they want to learn about. So for example, this semester, the theme is deserts. And they're learning everything about deserts and the animals that live there and the ecosystem. And within that, they learn how to read and to write, and they do lots of educational things around it. And it's a school that works a lot with social emotional development. So they have twice or 3 times a week, they have a class that's called Self, where they work with different emotions and how you can express them and how you work together. And if there is a conflict, they all sit down and they go like, what's actually happening here? So it's a lot more about life skills. It's very much connected to nature, to the cycles, to caring for the planet, while at the same time also learning like basic academics. So for me, it's really an integration of self and like exploring and getting to know who you are and how to move through the world while also learning like basic skills. And I think in this era that we're living in, and how disconnected a lot of us are, also because of technology, even though it connects us in a way, it disconnects us from ourselves. It's really, really important to give children a foundation of connection and stability within, from where they kind of go out into the world. Yeah. And I'm very grateful to live in Bali because they have really beautiful schools here that I haven't seen in other parts of the world.
Mm. Do you think you'll also be teaching at some point? Like take on a teacher position?
As in like training other people to do,
Yeah.
or what do you see as a teacher? Like, how do you define that?
Yeah, more like guiding people instead of facilitating energetic session transmissions,
Mm.
really
Mm-hmm.
guiding them so that, yeah, to impart and transform some knowledge or give them some structure or these kind of things.
Absolutely. I'm actually in the process of setting up a school that is not just about transmission, but like really integrating many different tools and many different aspects of this work.
Mm.
So yeah, in that sense, totally. Like, and I do work one-on-one with some people in those kind of like mentoring trajectories. I don't really like to use the word teacher though, because I think we're all on the same path, you know, and teacher sounds like as if someone holds the absolute truth, which is not something uh, that I hold. I do, however, I can share like my experience of this journey so far and what I have discovered and what has worked for me and what resonated with me. And I think a lot of that is helpful for others. Um, but I don't like to create like these systems where it's very hierarchical, as in uh, this is how it is and this is reality. I think we're all exploring this path and we're all exploring reality and in conversation. And like, I'm much more about community, because in community, in communication, like in reflection, that is where we mostly learn. And that's something like I've been building community here in Bali as well, and a little bit online. Like, I'm really looking into how can I facilitate more community, that all of us who are on this path
Mm.
can support each other, that is not dependent on like one person that holds the knowledge or the wisdom, but that it becomes more of a collective.
Mm. Okay. Can I, because you mentioned it, what vision do you have for the school that you want to start?
Yeah, so it's initiating people into this work. So there's different things. There's that. Then there are practices that are really supportive of that. So there will be shadow work.
Mm.
There will be um, there will be knowledge, just like really knowledge, lots of knowledge about energy body, like the whole system, this whole process. Like, there's a lot of information to
Mm.
share that is really helpful along the process. Um, and then there's a lot of different practices and tools that we can integrate uh, to support each other and to support your students. And even like now, I have a lot of people who want to learn more about Kundalini and like, what does this process entail? Like, there will be separate modules uh, to go through that, and simply like, okay, how can I cultivate this in myself? Because I want people to be eventually independent. Like, I want everyone to connect so deeply within that all the wisdom is already there. So all the tools that can help with that um, are great. Like, and I have a background in Ayurveda, yoga, tantra.
Mm.
So I have lots of inspiration of things that I want to, or that I could
Mm.
potentially share in that,
Mhm.
that are helpful to this process. But it's really in the process of self-realization and supportive to that in community.
Do you have a name?
I have, but I'm not going to share it yet.
Okay. So, can you say something about Tantra?
I can say a lot about Tantra.
Whatever you want. What is
I
Tantra?
mean, so in a way, Tantra is the path of the householder, where to find the sacred within everything, because it's not something separate from you. It's not something that you need to, like, what I really like about the tantric path, it is the path of bringing all this knowledge and source and everything up, all the ascending practices, to bring it back into the body and to use the body as a gateway to connect to source as we are having this human experience. And we are all not living the life of a monk in a cave in the Himalaya, because that would look very different. The practices that you would do there would look very different. Like, that is not supportive of us living in the world. And in this lifetime, I am in the world. I am not in a cave. So what I really love about Tantra is that it is a path that incorporates everything of the human experience, and how can you use everything as a way to dive deeper into connection with source.
Thank you.
And Tantra is often related to sexuality and sexual practices, which is more the Neo-Tantra. And that's definitely a very interesting path, but that is not necessarily what I refer to. It includes that too, but it includes everything of the human experience, and use that to connect with source, to connect with essence.
What is non-duality?
What is non-duality?
Embodied non-duality.
Can you fully embody non-duality? Because the body in itself is dual. As long as you're in the body, like our body is made up of elements from the earth. And this earth, like this reality in nature, is dual. So in my opinion, a full embodiment of non-duality, that is what happens again when you die. But that's not in the body, that then you fully become that again. So you can, on very deep levels, connect and become and live from that place of having experienced reality, from that place that you not only understand from an abstract point of view that there is no separation, but that you've actually experienced that. And the more you have spent time in that state where you truly experience that, the deeper that will root in your humanness, from where this equanimity that starts to arise in everything simply is, and a certain drive or desire, like this is good and this is bad, this is right, this is wrong, that all is an expression of you, and that you start to see the you, as in the real you, source, in everything around you. Yeah.
Do you have any experiences with psychedelics or entheogens?
Yeah, I do. I do. I have experience with ayahuasca, with bufo, with psilocybin, acid. Yeah, I've tried different. I've definitely tried different things, and they're all tools. They're all tools, and they can all be helpful, and they can all be destructive. Like anything can be medicine, and it can be poison, depending on how you use it. So with psychedelics, it can really, what it does in a way, it puts your mind into surrender. It pushes you into surrender. So you don't really have a choice. If you do ayahuasca, like, you don't really have a choice. It's going to be it's going to be very unpleasant if you keep resisting. So it connects you into the field, again, through the lens, like with every channel, through the lens of that specific substance, with truth. with the field, with the information that is there. And it can be really powerful to connect with that in whatever way. It can also, it's really important to integrate those experiences and use them as a tool to access the field, and not from a place, I want to have an experience, because then it's just an experience. If you don't integrate it, it's not helpful at all. If you see it as a way to just have an interesting trip and then don't really do much with the information you gather there. And it can be, so for example, I had a woman that kept coming to transmissions, and she was desperate to have an experience, and she felt very, very little. And after 7 sessions or something, she came to a retreat, and I put her in a room together with a woman that was facilitating ayahuasca journeys, and I did that on purpose. And for her, I felt like, she was German, very strong mind. I felt this would be great for her. This would really help her to get over that, like to open up that door that her mind holds onto so sturdy, to open that up. And then that, like, she had a great experience. And after that, she could actually connect to the transmission in a very different way, because it had opened up that pathway. So that's why I say they're tools that can be helpful, but we should really see them as tools and not as the way, because it's not the way. It's a tool that can support you or show you something, so then you have the pathways to access that by yourself. And for me, like, the strongest experiences, if we talk about experiences I've had, are definitely not on any kind of psychedelics. Yeah, and I feel like now I'm quite careful with with psychedelics. I have been careful with those. It's not that I've been doing that a lot, and I feel, because I also feel like there's also a distortion that it brings into your field. So yeah, it has two sides. It can be a medicine, it can be a poison, and if you use it, you should really use it with an intention for healing and for opening up a new pathway, and not as a tool that you need to connect with certain levels of consciousness or to have mystical experiences or anything like that. I don't think that's the way to do it.
Would it be fair to say that, because you said when you do certain psychedelic or entheogens, and you are put in a state, in a situation where you cannot resist, you have to surrender, and when you have the experience of surrender, that there also may be in your body and in your brain neural pathways, certain channels get opened up, and then they can then transfer to your energetic transmissions and other practices, so that then those things are more easily accessible, because you already have the memory and the open channels.
Yeah, totally. Like, it's like it became a reality, like that what you experienced, it became a real experience with the help of something, but it became a real experience. And that opens you up to the possibility of that is actually true. So it's therefore it's opening your mind. And I have so many people that come to transmission and they're like, oh, it's the same, like it's almost the same as ayahuasca, but then without the plants. How is that possible? And like, yeah, you tap into the same field, but now you realize you don't actually need the plant, because we don't need any of those substances to tap into source.
Can you say something about negative entities, light beings, and our role in all that?
That's a big topic. That's a big topic. So everything is a game of frequency. So yeah, there are entities, but what is an entity? What is an entity exactly? you know. Often when we think of an entity, it's like this person that has died and that is now haunting a house, like as an entity. But an entity, like if you have an addiction with something, if you're having repetitive negative thoughts, like thoughts are very real in creating an energetic charge. So we are constantly creating entities, so to say, of many kinds. It's not necessarily a soul that we connect to. It's simply a frequency that gets birthed. Light beings, spirit guides, ascended masters, all of those things are very real, and they're just beings from different dimensions. So again, that would be a whole other episode of a podcast if you start talking about the different astral planes and like what's happening on those different planes. So yeah, you have like in the seventh dimension, like that's the dimension of ascended masters. In the sixth dimension, there's like spirit guides and light beings, and they're all very real, and they're all connected to this planet, and they're all connected to us, and in a way they're all parts and expression of us too, in the different frequencies, the lower and the higher. And what is our role, like our role as human beings in that? It is, again, to connect with all our aspects, the light and the dark. And in terms of like lower density energies, we can sometimes support those to alchemize into a higher frequency through the heart, through love, through not being in fear, and also to direct them where they should be and not be in our field in a way.
Did you ever
But
have...
yeah, that's a big topic.
Did you ever
There's
have
a lot to say about that.
Sorry, did you ever have an experience with satanic or demonic energies?
Yeah, I have. I totally have. So yeah, I've seen entities. I've seen like a fire dragon manifesting, like almost physically, like manifesting. It was an energetic manifestation, but so visual that it was very real. Yeah, absolutely. And so for me, it's not a question like, is that real? Like, no, it's very real. Should we feel threatened by it? No, because then you go again into this illusion of separation. And again, it's a game of frequency. So what I have learned is if you are anchored in your own frequency, a lower density energy will never be able to attach into that because there's no resonance. So that's why if you are very much in fear or in a low vibrational state, like then it's easier to connect with those lower frequency entities because you resonate on a similar frequency, or there's holes in your field, so to say, that comes in. So I was laying on my bed when with a broken leg, and my partner being upstairs in the middle of the night, and there was an altar with a very specific stone there, where at one point, and this might sound crazy to some, but from that stone there was this fire dragon that started to come out and was over my bed where I was laying with a broken leg and I couldn't do anything. And I got scared, and then immediately I was like, oh, wait a second, like, okay, what do you want? What do you want? How can I help? And yeah, it was an interesting experience, and I realized that once I could like get into my heart and amplify my field, it would just dissolve. So yeah, for what that's worth.
Thank you for sharing that. Can I ask one more question?
Yeah.
So Can you give people advice on how to traverse their path and not get stuck?
Ooh, and not get stuck. Well, first of all, make sure that there's flow. Like, find the flow. Like, stagnation is not growth. So if there is stagnation, that means you're not on the right path with that specific thing. So if there is stagnation, is a sign for the opposite of growth. I mean, again, this is such a big topic. Like, stop caring less about what the world thinks of you and what you think you have to achieve. I think that is a very, very big one. To stop giving a fuck about all of that and start to tune in with what makes your heart sing, with what truly resonates, with what do you have to give to the world, and get out of that mentality of what you want to get from the world. Ask questions of, am I living from fear or am I living from love? Like, what is the foundation of my decisions? Do your shadow work. Go to some activations to start realigning with all those aspects of yourself, and begin to trust life. Like, be courageous. You're so much bigger than you think you are. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I will link all your links to your Instagram. I think you have a website as well.
Yeah.
So
I
we'll
do.
link
I'll
all of that.
send you the link.
Thank you
Great.
so much.
Thank you. Thank you for all your questions and your interest.
Thank
Yeah,
you
I
very much
enjoyed
for
it.
coming. Really.
For you it's early. You have a whole day ahead.
Yeah, it's 9:22 now.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Have a lovely day. I'll send you the links, and yeah, let me know when it's up and I'll share it.
Thank you very much, Marieke.
Beautiful. Thank you.